Well, you know what's on the top of my agenda right now is still is the pothole initiative. That's what's number one. I'm very pleased with the progress that's taking place. Of course, the number of calls have certainly spiked up dramatically from 22 per day to, as of a day or so ago, up to like 160 a day. So we anticipate that those numbers will continue to climb. Um, but this is a soft launch this week, and the crews are responding incredibly, and so I have to give them a lot of kudos for the work that's taking place out there actually on the street by the crews, and I certainly want to commend Public Works and ARA, Finance, HIT, technology, all for working neighborhoods, and citizens assistance for working together collectively to address that situation. I do want to emphasize repeatedly, though, this is a short-term temporary fix to a long-term problem. But I think, but it's important to regain the confidence and the trust of people. We don't want to engage in any gimmicks. We want to be very transparent in what we are doing with the numbers. But based on, and we have increased the size again of what has been previously defined as a pothole from 2 feet or less to 5 by 5, which I think touches upon what the average Houstonian would consider to be a pothole. And then we recognize even with some of the costs that are coming in, people are concerned about the conditions of the road, which in many cases require much more work. But based on the numbers that have already been done, and the analysis has been run, we're at a 96% completion rate. So I really love this graphic, which reflects 96% in terms of addressing those potholes by the next business day. So I'm very pleased with that. I do anticipate, though, we of course are limited by when it rains or when the weather is 45 degrees off and low or wet. That certainly can affect our efforts. And then we anticipate that we're going to ramp up dramatically, so we may not be able to get to as. I would love to be at 100%, let's say next week. But I think I would hope for everyone to understand that as the calls come in, because the Houstonians, I think, are now believing that the city is moving affirmatively to address these potholes, and so the numbers certainly may just spike dramatically. But at some point they're going to peak, and then they will level off and still come down. And so eventually, within our means and capability, we can certainly do it by the next business day. But I just want us to be mindful of that and not put forth an unexpected, unrealistic expectation. Let me put it that way. But up to this point, 96% success rate. Yes, Jerry.
Mayor, 2 quick questions. When you pledged this in your very first days, the city was caught up, but they were caught up on a 30-day turnaround. Currently, the Public Works Department reports to me there are nearly 400 work orders pending that were here before you took the oath. What's happening to those? These stats are for the newly called service requests, but you still have nearly 400 work orders out there. Are those being put on hold for the time being?
No, they're working on those as well. And Dale can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, we are working on it, and we're engaging.
Yeah, nothing is being put on hold. That's why I'm giving a great deal of credit to the crews. They are putting forth that extra effort to attend to those potholes, for example, that were already in the queue, already in the system, as well as for the additional calls and contacts that have come in.
But to clarify, those numbers you have do not address the existing nearly 400 work orders, Mr. Rudick?
No.
And those are up to a 30-day wait, correct? So on the priority triage list, where are those? In other words, you got to take care of the old before you take care of the new. Does that make logical sense?
I think as part of the 400 that we're talking about, there may be numbers that exceed that 5 by 5.
And there may be some that are less than
So yes, I don't want to play any games with the numbers. I don't want to get into that. But on that 400 that was already out there, in some of those situations, those may not have been potholes as we define them. They may have been larger than the 5 by 5. That's still on that 30-day those that are within the 5 by 5, those are being attended to and addressed in real time by the next business day.
And secondly, as you move forward, you say you can do this within the current budget that's in store. If you get 160 a day, and yes, I think there's going to be some tapering off at some point, there's concern privately in Public Works that the money will run out. Is that on your radar screen, sir, and what are you prepared to do to tackle that?
Well, I am talking to the people at Public Works, and we are drilling down on every line item, doing everything we can to work efficiently, cost-wise, and right now we are able to operate within the existing budget. We're also utilizing dollars that were left over from pothole 1, so to speak. So we're utilizing those dollars. But as it looks right now, Jeremy, we are operating within the existing budgetary constraints. And so I am optimistic. But what I am also doing at the same time is that trying to extract every ounce of efficiency and cost savings from this budget. So where there may be duplication, or where there may be some things that where we have not operated efficiently in the past, we're going to operate efficiently now. So, and then we streamline the operation. So between Department of Neighborhood, Citizens Assistance, and Public Works, they are streamlining the operation, they're communicating more, and I think we're operating much more efficiently. But I am pleased to report, within the existing budgetary constraints, we are achieving our goals. Yes, Rebecca.
Mayor, a follow-up budget question.
Sure.
Will you have to shift any resources from the capital improvement plan to address these potholes?
Nope, we're not doing that. We're not pulling from CIP. Again, based on dollars that were left from the previous, let's say that $10 million that was added for potholes, we're utilizing all of that. And quite frankly, what I've said to all the department directors, we're not going out and hiring more people where there are existing vacancies, unless they're just very critical. So we're deriving even savings from that as well.
Mayor, let me jump in here and talk briefly about the financials.
Sure.
I know I'm going back over here.
Yes, and the Kelly Dawkins.
When we talk about these pension concerns here, a financial expert that I talked to yesterday said that the numbers in that report are much too optimistic, especially when it comes to the rate of returns. Do you feel that's true?
The numbers in the...
That the picture is much worse than the $5 billion that came out of that?
No, I think when you take into account the way we were previously reporting funded liability of $3.2 billion, and with the new rules now in place, we are obligated to put all of the deferred payments out there. And I think what some of the credit rating agencies have said, when people ask them about that new number, $5 billion, that those numbers they had already factored in. It's not anything that the credit rating agencies didn't already know. It's just a new form of accounting.
You feel like that number's out there?
Yes, but that's not, but I don't want to imply that this is not a serious issue. This is a serious issue that needs to be addressed, and we tend to address it. But in terms of the new number, the new methodology that's being used, the credit rating agencies are already fully aware of those numbers.
Those of us who are reporters, we look at when that report came out, the December 31st, kind of at the last possible minute there. Do you think that there was any intent there, and what do you make of the fact that report came out at that time, when, of course, news often doesn't, make big news on that day at that time? Was there any intention, do you believe, and is there any need to go forward and perhaps be more transparent?
Well, we intend to be very transparent. I certainly can only speak to things that took place after I was sworn in, which was in January. But based on the information that I received, the work was pretty much done, I think right around the first week in December. They were starting to gather other things to finalize the report. And again, all the credit rating agencies were fully aware that when you shifted, when we had to shift to the new methodology, that the number was going to be actually higher. And Kelly, if I'm mistaken, please correct me.
Well, I think you touched on the fact that, number one, the report is prepared throughout December and put out by the Comptroller's Office, number one. It's not put out by was some confusion on that early that early December date, and all audits have a attestation date. That was on that report, and that's when the auditor says, I'm done with my testing. Now go put together the final numbers. We don't need any more corrections down at the lower level. Put together the summary report, and it's always been the case in the city of Houston that between that attestation date and the release date, there's a period of time that lapses, and the controller's office took as much time as it was needed to pull together those numbers, but that's their calls to ultimately they're not going to put out a report with error limits, so if it takes them 2 weeks, 3 weeks to put that together, I'm sure they're going to take that much time.
Mayor, back to potholes.
Yes.
Mayor Parker seemed to believe that the long-term, she was focusing on long-term fix of the streets and not so much on the short-term. Do you think that, you can focus on both? You can fix potholes now and also not neglect the long-term view?
Absolutely. Because if you don't take care of it in the short term, the Stonies are not going to give you an opportunity to deal with it on the long term. The reality is that I think one of the things that plagued Rebuild Houston was the fact that people have been paying their money on a monthly basis, but they're running over bad streets and they're blowing out their tires. Okay? And so for them, they're paying money, but they're not seeing the return. You have to do both. There must be a short-term strategy as well as a long-term strategy. Same with we handle our finances, short-term and long-term.
And you think it's doable?
Absolutely.
And why couldn't Mayor Parker do it?
I think every person runs his or her lap, and I think she ran her lap, and she's passed the baton, and now it's up to me to run my lap. At the end of my stay here, I'm not going to complete everything that needs to be done for the city of Houston. Somebody else will have to pick up the baton and go from there. So it's not about looking back, it's about what do I have before me, what am I charged with doing, and for me, in listening for 23 months on the campaign trail, the issue that came up over and over again was potholes. Now, that's not to say that there are not other pressing issues, because there are financial issues as well. But I think it's important to do everything we can to gain the trust and confidence of voters, and dealing with the potholes in real time is one way of doing it. As short term, the long term is to repave and reconstruct many of our roads.
Something that's related to this, but not under your control, is, of course, the strength of the oil and gas industry, which is one of our major industries here.
Right.
As you know, in the stock market recently, there have been a lot of concerns about its future structure.
Right.
Do you see any clouds on the horizon for Houston's budget as the oil industry struggles?
And it's my hope that sooner rather than later, things will turn around there. It certainly can affect us in our sales tax. It can affect us in our ad valorem taxes as well. The good news is that even now, the city of Houston is not where it was in the 1980s. Our economy is much more diversified, and so there are many other areas that are keeping us going, and I think that's a plus. But hopefully, we're not going to be in this state for an extended, protracted period of time. In the meantime, we'll have to make the adjustments accordingly. We'll have to tighten our belts accordingly, and anticipating that things will continue to be where they are for a while. And that just means that we'll just have to operate under the most conservative options.
I just wanted to clarify the 96%. Is that the concerns coming in a day? Can you explain?
Yeah, those
exactly
are
what that
the
is?
calls that are coming in that fall within that 5x5, description of a pothole, that are being assessed and addressed by the next business day. That's 96%.
So they come in one day and then they're addressed the
They're
next
fixed.
day?
Yes,
Fixed the
they
next
are
day?
repaired. Now where there may be calls coming in and they fall outside of that 5.5, but it's, the panel needs to be replaced, or it may be what you call it skid. A skid patch, which may be larger than that 5.5 by 5. That's put on that 30-day list, or put on that priority list that's given to me for me to review.
And that's what you were showing on the pie chart.
That's
right?
right.
So are you having to bring in more crews? How are you getting it done so quickly?
When we're operating more efficiently, I have high expectations, and we are ramping up to anticipating that calls are coming in, we are ramping up to meet those additional calls. And it's not, again, please give the credit to the crews that are out there that are working every single day to make it happen. Some sense they were working 5 days, now they're working 6. But I also recognize that as more calls come in, this is 640 square miles, 2.2 million people. So, I mean, just, if you'll help us with this, just from a realistic, pragmatic point of view, if all these calls come in, for example, like today, let's say you get 1,000 calls. Realistically, it's going to be difficult for us just to get to it the next day. But over a period of time, it will peak, level off, start to go down. And the system that we have put in place is designed to attend to them the very next day. But for right now, we are able to handle the increased calling, and we are getting to them at the rate of 96%.
Have you been getting, been able to get feedback yet from the public?
We're getting emails and calls and on Facebook that are saying, we called in, you got to them in the next business day, yay. So the responses have been great, and I think even some of you have called in with potholes, and we've gotten to them. So the response has been positive, but we'll have some misses. But the point is, and I think what I want to emphasize is that we put in place a process, and we're operating in good faith to indicate to the public that we are not disregarding them, we're not ignoring them, we are being attentive to them, and because I think there was a point in time when Houstonians simply said nothing's going to happen, why bother? We're not utilizing the app, we're not calling in because nothing is going to happen. Now the public is much more engaged, and I think what's important is that we are saying to them, we're going to do everything that we can within the physical constraints that we are operating and our physical ability to attend to them and the weather to address them. We are operating in good faith. So hopefully the general public will give us credit for at least responding to what they perceive and what is very important to them.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Okay,
Okay.
jump in. This is about Freedmanstown.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm wondering if you have any plans to help the community become a historic district or a tourist destination.
It is a very historic area. It was Freedmanstown before it was 4th Ward, and 4th Ward became Midtown. I grew up in the area. Many of the slaves that were set free after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in Galveston came down the Gulf Freeway, and they landed in Freedmanstown. It's a very historic area. It is certainly my desire to maintain that history, not to lose. We don't want to lose it. We certainly don't want to wipe it out. The issue that's confronting us right now on the street, and so that case is still pending. I think there were arguments heard in October. No ruling has been put forth yet, but I'll be working with city legal, and I'll be working with community leaders and others to see what we can do this in the best interest of the city of Houston.
Mayor Parker was very opposed to the tunneling under the street. How do you
Yes,
feel
ma'am.
about it?
Well, the area has a lot of historical significance, and let's work and see if we can make that we can establish a win-win outcome and not a win-lose. Okay.
Mayor, by my count, you did not account for 36 of the 550 potholes that were reported as either assessed and addressed, or assessed, categorized as a different kind of street condition or a duplicate. What happened with those remaining potholes?
36. Say it one more time, Rebecca.
So by my count, there were, I think it was 329 potholes that were, 316 were repaired, 329 were categorized as potholes, 172 were duplicates, and 13 were categorized as another kind of street condition. That doesn't add up to 550. What were the remaining? potholes?
It would just gone,
Come on, yeah.
it would have just gone to the following business day. Our measure was the next business day. We attained over 96%. From there, the intent was to just get them done the next day.
So those remaining 36 were,
That would be the goal, is to get it to the next business day as soon as possible.
I think, and maybe we need to just add another,
Yes.
maybe.
but my understanding was that 316 of the 329 were addressed, of the 329 that were categorized as potholes were addressed by the next business day.
Right.
That doesn't, that there's still 36 reports missing.
All we were doing is reporting the metric for the next business day, which we hit 96%. And the balance that you're talking about is what fell outside of what the metric was.
So maybe probably the next day is what,
Okay.
but we need to, just
We can-
clarify to make sure
Okay.
that everything is done.
Correct.
So if it was the next day, let's put that up. We'll
Okay.
clarify that.
Okay.
Because what's very, I want to be very clear, very transparent. We're not trying to, no gimmicks, no games, you know. So thank you for bringing that up
Okay.
and we'll
Yeah, I may be
clarify.
mistaken, but if you could just check
Right,
on
we'll
that.
clarify it on our matrix so that
Okay.
it's accounted for.
And you said that the city addressed, in addition, another more than 1,200 potholes.
That's correct.
How did you determine which potholes to address and the priority in which to address them?
Yeah.
Proactive ones are those that, as we're filling potholes that are, let's say, less than 2 by 2, we've got the machinery that's out there, and they're going, and those that aren't reported, and they see them, they're filling them. If they have the capacity within the equipment that they're driving, and they're passing through it, they're filling it. So therefore, that's proactive, we're not waiting for it to be called in.
Yeah, those are the ones where I guess you can say kind of like self-reporting or self-identifying and addressing. So we're just not relying on the public to contact us through the app, and I certainly want to push the app, 311 app, that's important, or making calls or the email system. When our crews are out there and they are, let's say, going from point A to point B, and they are running across, identifying other potholes that they can address, they are doing that without someone having to make that call. So that's the proactive reporting.
How do you define a pothole as posing a safety hazard? It says in here that those weren't.
It may be a situation that even if you just overlay it, you got some serious problems underneath. So it doesn't, it's more than just filling a pothole. It's much more involved, it's much more, it may require more extensive work. That's a public safety issue, which means just putting some asphalt down won't make the street safe. So it requires more action.
And so that will be addressed later.
That's on a priority list that's given to me. And that pretty much will probably fall within that 30-day window instead of by the next business day.
If it is a safety issue, in other words, it's beyond what we can do immediately, it can be something that if we can't fix it, we know it's an immediate issue, we'll barricade it off, we'll do whatever. The important thing is to make it safe for the driver until we can actually provide the proper measure to get it corrected.
You know, what we don't want to do is just go out there and patch something and and leave a public safety issue for the purposes of being able to claim success in this program. Public safety always remains paramount.
Well, actually, how I read this is those that pose no safety hazard so those that pose no safety hazard were not addressed at this point. That's what it's saying.
No.
Because the rest were not, the rest of the 550 were not pothole. Okay, were duplicate or no safety hazard, so.
Correct.
We got out there, we didn't see a safety issue or a problem that really required a pothole being.
Okay, so, but I'm just wondering, like, what is the difference between a safety hazard and just a nuisance for? I mean, I guess
Jerry,
there's.
we can have this conversation.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
You
I
know,
think
what-
we're done.
I think,
Well,
We see that his name is spelling for our rider.
right. The only, let me just say that it's a significant step moving in the right direction. I think the numbers are impressive. Come on, guys. I mean, we don't have to be pessimistic all the time. I mean, we don't. We just don't have to be. sometimes there can be some good news coming from City Hall. I mean, I think we don't have to look for,
Just trying to understand.
there can be good news. There can be good news. It doesn't all have to always be bad news. It can be good news. I think what the public want to know, are you listening? One. Number two, are you putting forth a good effort to respond? Third, you're not trying to play games, no trickery, and you're not making us more unsafe. And we don't want to play games. That's why when you look at the 2x2, when I looked at it, the question I asked, is this what the average Houstonian thinks is a pothole? And we all agree that for the average Houstonian, their definition of a pothole exceeded 2x2. And that's why we expanded it to 5x5. Because that then gets to what the average Houstonian believes is a pothole. And we're getting to them by the next business day. But if it creates a safety hazard, we're not going to just do something to claim to check it off. You put it on the priority list. And that's what we're doing. And I'm asked for all the numbers. Let's be transparent. Let's be open about it. Not trying to hide the ball. Not trying to gauge in trickery. But I will underscore, it is short term. Filling potholes is a short term fix, long term problem. So we're doing that. But there can be good news. And at this point, this is good news. 96%. When prior to me coming into office, people wasn't calling in on average 22 a day. So if we can all just love one another.
Mayor, I just had one question on the one bid report. Did you read it by now? And what do you think about it? Do you think it's still going to happen?
I'm still assessing that report. I'm looking at it, but quite frankly, it is not on my agenda to take any action on it. I am almost singularly focused on two things, and that's infrastructure related to this pothole problem, and then getting our arms around our financial challenges. If it doesn't necessarily fall within those parameters, it's on the list. But I am singularly focused on making sure that we handle our financial challenges and we get the infrastructure concerns right. Everything else is on the table. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.